Welcome back to the Peace of Living podcast. We are your hosts, Jason
and Allison.
And we're so glad to be with you for our 60th episode. Woo!
If you have been here this whole time with us, thank you.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear from you.
Patient people.
Yeah, send us a message, a DM on Instagram if you are among the few, probably just our parents, who've been here.
Maybe.
Yeah, not even then.
You're making some assumptions.
I know. Be like, okay, it's just you and me. We're the only ones that have listened to all of these.
But yeah, send us a message. We'd love to hear, I don't know, would love to hear more from you. So you can message us on Instagram, or our email is peaceoflivingpodcast@gmail.com. But 60th episode, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And most of these are recorded pretty late at night after long days. So if they are helping you, it's really probably not us. It's got to be the Holy Ghost, because that will convey the message that needs to be said probably more than our babblings at, the witching hour. But
Babblings at the witching hour. That's actually going to be the new podcast name.
Babblings.
We're changing it.
Yeah. That's good. So, but 60th episode, it's very cool. And we're recording this 2 days before the United States, because we know there are some. It's pretty cool to see the data roll in. We have some international listeners. We don't know who you are, but that's really cool that you've somehow found us down in the deep recesses of the podcast world, because there's so many podcasts. But we're 2 days away from the United States Thanksgiving. And we were just reflecting, like we already mentioned, on our gratitude for you, for listening, but just for a lot of things in our lives, especially our family and our kids and everything we've, been blessed with. And it's all just thanks. It just really is all thanks to God. And we wish you all just a very, very happy Thanksgiving, or as it's more and more being celebrated now, it's merely like an appetizer for Christmas here in just over a month, which is kind of cool. But anyway, we wanted to make a couple quick notes about gratitude, which we did a year ago. We'll put a link back to that episode as well in the notes. But we did a whole episode last year, which is weird to think that was a year ago. Holy smokes! And there was some good stuff, I think, some incoherent babblings that you might find worth your time.
We babble that much?
No. But I just like that word now. Haven't used that word that much ever. But anyway, that was a great episode. It had some good stuff in it. And so we'll link to it. But tonight we'll briefly mention it, because I did have some thoughts on it, but we also wanted to talk about some other things too. So but just to start off with, I just wanted to just kind of bring up the theme of that episode at least. And that was, we talked a little bit about the story of the 10 lepers in that episode, and how there were 10 lepers, which what a horrible, horrible disease to live with. And of course, the story, Jesus heals the 10, and one comes back with, gratitude in his heart, falls at his feet, cries out with a loud voice, glorifying God, and gives Jesus thanks. And Jesus, at the end of that exchange, says to the one that came back, go forth, thy faith hath made thee whole. And I think that's really cool. Like, all 10 were healed, but only one was made whole. And as I was studying that today, I was like kind of thinking back on that, and like, what is it about, our faith in Jesus Christ, to come to him with gratitude for what he's done in our lives that makes us whole. And I had a lot of different thoughts, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just if this spurs anything for you in the theme of Thanksgiving, in the New Testament, a lot of the times when the word perfect is used, the translation is not, what we might think of as being perfect, in the sense of like being flawless. Like that was like a perfect performance, or this is a perfectly cooked pie, right? Or whatever, without flaw. It's usually in the New Testament sense means more along the lines of something that has been made complete or whole, or however, what other synonyms you want to throw at that, right? Like 100% all in, whatever. And it's kind of cool to think like one of like the bridges from not only being healed from our infirmities or whatever, our ailments, that's very cool. But to becoming made whole has a lot to do, again, with coming to the Lord and trusting him, and also by just giving thanks to him. But I wondered, going back to the leper, I wondered today, and I don't know that I necessarily have an answer. Well, I think I do, actually. I think I do, but it's more fun to kind of just ponder about, let the Spirit work on you. So the question I would ask anybody listening is, what did the leper come and thank Jesus for? And my initial assumption, and which I think probably all of ours is that he came back and thanked Jesus for being healed, obviously, like no more leprosy. Like that's huge, like life-changing in so many ways. But then I had the thought, like, I wonder if that leper, and I genuinely do, I wonder if that leper came back and gave thanks to Jesus for the leprosy. Like, thank you for the experience of having this, and like how it's changed me, and how I've grown from it. And, we've talked a lot in recent podcast episodes, like the healing and the joy episodes, especially about some of the experiences we've had in the last few months that have, really been growing deeply, deeply effective experiences for us and spiritually. And I feel, more whole or 100% or complete than I did without those, which has been amazing to experience firsthand. But it did make me wonder. I wonder if the leper did say, you know what, like it was terrible, and I'm so glad that leprosy is over. But am I? I'm actually kind of glad for the experiences and for how I grew from having that. It's just an interesting thought to experience, and like Elder Holland, or to ponder. See, it's late. But Elder Holland, in his Lessons from Liberty Jail talk, he mentions, he's like, you know what, through the atonement of Jesus Christ, like he can take even the most miserable circumstances of our lives and turn them into would-be temples. And, those kind of temple experiences where we can grow a lot and be grateful. And I think that does those kinds of experiences. And even if we can eventually, maybe not immediately, I get it's so hard, but get to the point in our hearts where we are grateful for those experiences. I think that's like another level of gratitude that truly does contribute to a wholeness, right? And to, being more complete or perfected like Jesus and like our heavenly parents. Like if our whole purpose, like we talked about not long ago, also on this podcast in this life, is to become more like our heavenly parents, showing gratitude for those experiences is huge. Like that's anyway, that's a whole other level.
That just made me think while you were talking, it's interesting how we, especially around Thanksgiving time, we put this emphasis on giving thanks for what we have.
Yeah, right.
And that's easy to do. It's easy to be thankful for all the good things in our life. But I think you're right. That's where we take it up to the next level, when we're thankful for the things that we don't have or that we didn't want initially.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just was thinking about that while you were talking, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit and made me question, do I really understand what gratitude is? Do I really get it?
Yeah, well, it reminds me of back in 2020, November, the best time in the world, right? During the middle of the pandemic, when President Nelson came out with his gratitude message, which has like a staggering number of views on YouTube. It's like really impressive. But anyway, he said this, and again, in the midst of a pandemic, right? This is what he says. He's like, as a man of faith, I view the current pandemic as only one of many ills that plague our world, including hate, civil unrest, racism, violence, dishonesty, and lack of civility. And he talks like, Scientists are laboring to develop a vaccine. And then he says there is no medication or operation that can fix the many spiritual woes and maladies that we face. There is, however, a remedy, one that may seem surprising because it flies in the face of our natural intuitions. And like kind of we were just mentioning, like, do I say thank you for those hard? I don't, that's like tough. Like that's like deep, deep level, right? And then he says, nevertheless, its effects have been validated by scientists as well as men and women of faith. And then he does say, I am referring to the healing power of gratitude. Like, it's crazy, that this wasn't just like, oh, wow, that President Nelson wants to send out a Thanksgiving message. And that's nice, holiday, timely thing. It's like, no, this like came to him in the middle of the night as a revelation in the middle of like a global crisis. And the Lord's like, the solution's gratitude. Like it blows my mind. And like you just said, Allie, I don't think I fully understand gratitude yet. I think I'm getting,
humbling.
Yeah. Like even later on, he goes on to say, he gives examples of things that we can give thanks for, like our amazing bodies and our minds and art and literature and music and everything. But then he goes, going back to the leper story, he's like, we can even give thanks for our trials from which we learn the things we would not know otherwise. And I think, the thing about President Nelson that I've noticed is that he doesn't always spell it out. Like when he says that, like you can hear it and it's like, oh yeah, cool. We can learn, but like, what does that mean? Like okay, so what are those things that we couldn't learn otherwise? And I think for me and the leper, for example, like that leper learned a whole lot about Jesus by just going back to him. And like by going back to Jesus and like even Jesus saying what he said, like, I don't know, there's something like that you learn about God and Jesus when you go back to him and maybe even say thank you, like he said there for our trials, that you learn the character and essence of God probably in only that way. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for that. It feels weird to say that because it's like, I don't know if I'd wish any of these things upon anyone. And we don't want to go through that. But at the same time, like to become whole or complete, it seems like it's pretty essential, like essential with a capital E, given the revelation from President Nelson in the midst of a pandemic, like the Lord saying, this is the solution to the problem is gratitude. That's like not what you'd expect. Right. And like the leper, everybody else was healed, but for him to become something more, like there's something deeper about being made whole. It's like, it's spiritual, it's deep, it's in your soul, it's in your heart to be made whole, right? Rather than just like your physical body. If you want your total self, your wholeness to be actualized, right? And realized, like gratitude is the key, but it's not just like being thankful for just like all, I don't even know what I'm saying
like
anymore.
My life is so great.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, again, you're just expanding my view of this, which I think is really good because it's funny how just at face value, I take all of like the parables and the Bible stories that we read over and over and over again. And I'm like, oh yeah, the 10 lepers story. That's all about how it's important to be grateful and we should always thank the Lord for what we have. But I haven't really dug deeper into the why. Why was that making this one leper whole? Because I think naturally the other 9 lepers, it's not that they were ungrateful. Of course they were grateful. Like I'm sure they were like, yay, I'm so happy I'm healed. And like
right.
Maybe even shouting at the sky, I'm so grateful that this awful disease is gone. And who could fault them for that? But I think possibly for me, what the Lord is trying to teach there is, okay, but pay attention to this one leper, like, as you said, the one that returned back to him, that actually had this like face-to-face conversation with Jesus, who deepened his relationship with Jesus. It wasn't even, It was like, I feel like it goes beyond the disease, the trial itself, and it becomes something more meaningful. And as we've shared on this podcast, like we've been pretty open about some deep trials that we've gone through too, that like just at face value, they're awful and it's not anything that you'd ever want to go through. And yet like there's been so much deeper meaning to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I cannot lie. I feel, and I've said this before, but besides probably my mission, if we're talking experiences, I don't know that there has been an experience where I've felt more of God's, like I've learned more about God in so many ways than what's happened the last few months. It's undeniable, the love and the care and the sensitivity and like all just like the little nuanced blessings that's been a part of our lives as a result. I can't deny that. And like President Nelson said, if something like that were not part of mortality, I don't know that. How else do you learn that? You know, how else do you learn it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So then,
you know,
maybe, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and thinking about the leper, because I'm just, I do like to ask the question, and if he's probably not listening, but my principal, he always tells me, he's like, you're so good at just asking why. Like you always want to know, like, what's the why, right? And like with the leper, I'm like thinking, okay, so before Jesus showed up and I don't know, we don't know the full story there, but before Jesus showed up or they crossed paths or Jesus went to them, I'm not sure, but like the lepers he was probably like totally used to people like, you know, saying like, get away from me. I don't want you around. You're disgusting. You're full of disease. And so first of all, it's like Jesus, it's what he learns about his interaction of Jesus before he's healed. Jesus comes to him like the other leper story, you know, where is it? Luke 9 or something where, you know, the leper's like, you know, well, if you can't, I know you can heal me if you can, or if you want to. And Jesus is like, I will, like, I want to. And here he is coming to a leper. I want to heal you. I will touch you. Right. Like, and so it's that experience, but it's also like, and maybe we kind of do like the same thing. Maybe we like go to Jesus looking for like a blessing and we want healing or something. And maybe it does come, but it's also, or he comes to us, but then it's also like, okay, you came to me in this moment and blessed me. But then like the being made whole kind of just what you were just saying spurred this like image in my mind. It's like, it's us like going back once the healing's done. It's like, wait a minute, like I want more. Like, can I be around you? Can you show me more of who you are? And like, let's set the leprosy aside. Like, let me know you.
Like, it's not the blessing, it's the blesser.
Yeah.
That we should be focusing on.
I don't know. I'm just talking out loud here.
We're learning as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like those thoughts. I think that's really neat. I mean, and I think it does tie into what we plan to talk about this week.
It does, for sure.
Again, with rethinking the whole concept of gratitude and what that really is, I mean, it's being thankful for what you have, yes, but also like truly just like deeply seeking Jesus in your heart. I feel like that's what gratitude is. When you get a taste for what that feels like and you want to pursue it. I don't know. But I think that one way that we exhibit a life of gratitude is by consecrating our talents and the things that he's given us to bless others. Yeah. I think that's one of the very best ways that we can show gratitude to him, because we know that like ultimately everything that we have, all that we are is from him. But the story that comes to mind is a recent example that actually our friend Jess shared with us, which goes to show the power that can come from just sharing something on social media randomly that you think might be uplifting, because maybe like 99 times out of 100, you just skip over the stuff that your friends share and you think, oh, that's nice. But every so often there'll be something that someone shares that just kind of hits you a little differently or just right. And I feel like that was the case for me when she shared the link to this reel by Dallas Jenkins, who's the creator and the director of the Chosen series about Jesus that we've talked ad nauseum about on this podcast. It's actually the subtitle of our podcast, The Peace of Living, The Chosen Fans.
Go watch The Chosen.
But he and his wife hopped on to Instagram about a week and a half ago, I want to say, to share some breaking news that they were finally allowed to share that he had gotten the rights to direct a remake of the film adaptation of the book, the best Christmas pageant ever. And did you ever read that?
No, I don't think I ever did.
You never? Okay. Well, I bought another copy on Amazon because I plan on rereading it, but you'll have to reread it. You'll have to read it for the first time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll read it as a family. I don't know. But I don't remember every book that I read in elementary. You know how like your teacher will pick a book that everybody reads together out loud. I remember this one. It was in 3rd grade. And our teacher assigned us this book, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And it's a fast read. And obviously it's a Christmas story thing. But it really is like a sweet story. And I remember it impacted me even as like an 8-year-old kid, which is just about the same age as Finn, which is crazy to think about. And I don't want to like give the story away, but essentially, you know, it's just about this pageant that gets put on in this local community and it's crashed by these like really bad kids or what society thinks that they're really bad kids because they're always getting into trouble and doing naughty things and stuff. But anyway, they become the stars of this pageant and some things ensue without any spoilers. But it's a great little story. But I was excited to hear that Dallas was going to be directing a remake of that film set to release next year. So if anyone wants to go see it with us, I'm sure I'll go see it. And the thing that I was really touched by, though, was that he and his wife were talking about how they had wanted to do it. Like ever since he read that book, he said that like when he put it down, he was like in tears because he knew he needed to make this movie. Like this was a story that spoke to his heart and he knew that he had to do this. And he asked his wife, like, how long do you think we've been praying for this opportunity? And I think, and don't quote me on this, but it definitely was in the double digits, but I think she said 15.
I think it was 15 years.
15 years? 15 years is about the time that they started praying for this opportunity for him to direct it. And for those who don't know, like the process of directing a movie is so like whoever owns the rights to it, like those rights expire every few years or so. So like a studio might have the rights to make a movie, but then if nothing happens to it within a few years, then, you know, those rights get sold to someone else, whatever. It's kind of a cool process. Fascinating. But he kept having to like check in every few years with whoever held the rights to see like if he could make this movie. But in the meantime, he said that he created this reminder that popped up like on his computer screen daily at like a certain time that said, pray for pageant. Every single day for 15 years, he had this little reminder pop up, pray for pageant, pray for pageant. And how he talked about how there were so many times when he was told no, and he just kept having the feeling to like keep going, keep trying. You never know what's going to happen. And then like the time before he got the rights, like the last time he was told no, I think he was feeling really discouraged and was even going to like delete that reminder off of his computer to pray for pageant because to all evidence it wasn't working. But his wife was encouraging him and saying, no, I really feel good about this. I think you should keep praying, like something's going to work out. And then, you know, he ends up going on to, he had made several other like little films and some that like didn't do very well along the process. It's not like he was an immediate success overnight. Like he had to fail a lot along the way. And then he makes The Chosen, which is this smashing success. And that, you know, that little franchise, that's what kind of gave him the name recognition and gave him the right connections to set him up to be able to direct this movie the best Christmas pageant ever. And I don't know, you should go and listen to his story directly because I'm paraphrasing most of it. It's about like 11 minutes or so of he and his wife sharing their story. But I think it's definitely worth a watch because you can just feel the faith that these two people have in God and in his ability to answer prayers. And I just was I watched it sitting in my car when I got home late one night, and I just kind of started to tear up listening to this story because I thought, wow, he has been praying. They've both been praying for this one thing persistently every single day for 15 years. What could I be asking the Lord for that I'm not?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, even the things that like I really want, sometimes that I guess I'm just kind of a lazy prayer sometimes because I'll pray for something really, really hard for like a few days. And then if it doesn't happen, I'm like, yeah, it's not happening. And then I move on, which is so lame of me. But this...
I need to stop talking about this. He's sick of hearing about it.
He's tired. Yeah, clearly. I mean, I haven't gotten the answer I wanted in 72 hours. So moving on, right? But that was a really big lesson to me that like God really can. He really can work miracles in your life if you are patient and persistent.
Yeah, like this would not have happened without him doing The Chosen.
No.
I mean, talk about being persistent. Not that was like why he did The Chosen, but little did he know that would end up being the key.
Oh, yeah.
To this happening. And the Lord's like, hey, how about doing the show about Jesus and the apostles, right? I'm sure he wasn't even thinking, I'm going to use this to get pageant. No, but it was like God knew. And I think that's so cool.
And I don't know, it's a year off, right? But I mean, I'm guessing that over time, the Chosen series is going to be far and away his biggest accomplishment continue to endure for several years, forever, hopefully. And that like this movie is going to, I have high hopes that it's going to be really, really good. And I'm sure people will love it. But I also think like that is so fascinating to me that while he's praying for this thing that he thinks is like his ultimate goal, this bigger thing is happening.
Yeah, it's so cool.
But I do think...
It's a great thing. Oh, yeah.
I do think, because we hear all the time, prophets have taught us this, the scriptures teach us this, that the act of praying itself strengthens our faith. And so I have to believe that even while he was praying for something else, because he was doing it so persistently and consistently, I think that process over the course of 15 plus years was changing him and like slowly piece by piece, like building what the Lord wanted to build out of his talents, which is a beautiful thought to me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like, I feel like we've seen maybe a little bit of that in our own lives, at least, and there's a couple things that, which I'll mention maybe some experiences in just a second. But as you were saying that, well, one thing that came to my mind was just with the Jaredites in Ether, chapter 1. It's interesting, like over and over for like several verses, like 8-9 verses starting in verse 34 to verse 42, basically, about there. Over and over, Jared goes to his brother, their brother Jared, and he, they're at the Tower of Babel. They don't want their, family or their language to be confounded or separated. And so, he goes and asks his brother to cry unto the Lord. And he says that he does that like several times, like starting in verse 34, he cried unto the Lord. 36, 37, 38, 39, over and over, there's that phrase. And also that same phrase is actually repeated in Alma chapter 34 when Amulek's preaching. And he says, you can cry unto the Lord about your flocks. And I think it's just interesting too. Like, I don't know that we need to take a whole lesson on this thing specifically, but I think it's interesting that when they wanted revelation or direction or help or something big to happen in their lives, like this is pretty big, you know? He didn't say, just go say a prayer to God. Can you just go say a prayer? It was, he cried unto him like over and over and over again. And you can maybe ponder on your own, like all that might mean for you. But to me, I read that and I'm like, that's something like Enos, where your soul is hungry for that. Like, I want to do pageant. I want, like, what about this, right? Like, I need help. I would love to do this thing in my life. Like, and you cry unto, and then it's cool because twice in those same verses in Ether, well, and in Enos, same thing happens. It says the Lord had compassion upon the brother of Jared and their families and friends, which is cool. The Lord had compassion on them and gave them direction. To Enos, it says that the Lord spoke unto him. To Joseph Smith, even. Joseph Smith, when he went into the sacred grove, I love the phrase that he uses. He said, I knelt down and offered up the desires of my heart. Like that's the kind of prayer that yields. Maybe not. And again, in these stories, it seems like, ooh, they're getting it right away. And you might get revelation right away, or the path might be cleared quickly, but it might take 15 years. It might take 30 years for some of these prayers to be answered. But just because they're taking time, I don't think that means that we should stop crying unto the Lord or stop offering up the desires of our heart to God, or even wrestling like Enos, wrestling with the Lord about some of these things.
Well, and you made me think too, hearkening back to the leper, like you said, sometimes we get that immediate answer, or sometimes it takes this much time or whatever. But again, I don't think it's so much about the answer.
Yeah.
And I think that there's the lesson there is, yeah, Dallas now has what he wants. He has the thing that he's been praying for 15 years. But I can pretty much guarantee that he is not stopping praying, right? Just because he's gotten what he's been wanting. I mean, he has deepened his relationship with the Lord this whole time doing this. And now it's going up an even higher step, because now that he has it, he even said this in his reel. He and his wife were like, please pray for us. Pray for this project. Pray for the actors that they're going to catch a vision of what we want to do here. Like, the ante has been upped, you know?
It's like a tree and branches just sprouting out. Now there's all this.
So I don't think that God is like, you know, he's like the vending machine of blessings. It's like, no, I'm working or I'm out of order, come back later. I think that he has one whole grand purpose, and that it's not like get in line and wait for your answers to come. It's all the same. It all has the same end.
It's all part of the process, right?
So it's not so much that what I'm asking for happens or doesn't happen. It's, where am I in relation to God right now? Am I getting closer to him? Because that is what matters most. Because if Dallas had been like one of the other 9 lepers and been like, great, I got my thing, peace out, Lord, then I think that like those 15 years of praying for this thing would have been for naught.
That's really good. Well, I'm going to drop a sports reference.
What?
Ready? Well, as you're saying that, it reminds me, and I really like this phrase, but like, just respect the process. Like the process, right? Respect. It's not just about like the game or winning. It's like, it's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And the growth that happens throughout, right? Game included, but like respect the process and be patient with it. Like, and give it its respect. Like, go through the reps, right? Go through the prayers, the scriptures, the sacrament meetings, and respect the process. And just, and going what we talked about not long ago, just plant those seeds. You know, I was reading about, oh, this is adorable. I don't know if you saw this, but so we're great British baking show fans. Huge, great. We just love that show. Is that what's adorable? Well, no, but I'm going somewhere with it, okay? But I follow Paul and Prue on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Did you see that post by Prue today?
Today?
It was really sweet. Yeah. Or just the other day. It was this just picture of like this beautiful like blossom on a flower. Oh, it's like makes me emotional to think about it. And she simply just wrote, it was so cute. She simply wrote in the caption, like, does anybody know how long it takes this tree to blossom? Because I want it to blossom before I die. And I was like, oh, so I looked at the comments, and it turns out this tree, whatever it was, it takes about 15 years before it produces its first blossom. And when it does, it's beautiful. It's like a special kind of tree or something that she wants to plant it for her brother. And he wants, you know, I was like, that's so cute, you know, but like, you know, yeah, to produce that fruit and to taste it might take a bit. Right. And that actually reminds me of when we talk about acting in faith in our doctrinal mastery in seminary, I really, really like these quotes from the core document. When we, you know, it says here, as we seek to develop our understanding and to resolve concerns, it's important that we rely on the testimony that we already have of Jesus Christ. And Elder Holland said, when those moments come and issues surface, the resolution of which is not immediately forthcoming, hold fast to what you already know and stand strong until additional knowledge comes. The Lord himself has invited us to look unto him in every thought, doubt not, fear not. And it says, during times when we may not immediately find answers to our questions or direction, or however you want to fill that in, it's helpful to remember that although Heavenly Father has revealed all that is necessary for our salvation, he has not revealed all truth. And that could be even, you know, to our own lives, like individually. He's maybe revealed, you know, enough, but he hasn't revealed everything. As we continue to seek for answers, we must live by faith. And like Allie mentioned, faith is an action word, like we take action, trusting that we will eventually receive the answers we seek. As we are faithful to the truth and light we have already received, we will receive more. Answers come line upon line.
So good. And I want to add to that, this whole idea of trust the process, be patient, all of that. I can still see this. I can see the quote handwritten by my friend when I was serving as a missionary in Panama. And as we know, missions take a lot of patience. And there's a lot of growing that happens in that 18 to 24 months or however long you serve. You know, it can be any number of months. And my sweet friend who was in the MTC with me, there were 4 of us hermanas who started out in the mission training center together and all went to Panama. And then we all got sent to different areas, you know, and we would write each other letters to encourage each other throughout our missions. And Hermana Oakes, who I don't know if she's listening, but if she is, I owe her a big thank you, because one of her letters, she wrote down a quote from Elder Uchtdorf from his talk, one of my favorite talks of his that he ever gave, Continue in Patience. It's that famous one that he talks about the study of the little kids that were with the
marshmallows.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite things. I love the marshmallow test.
They were left in a room with a marshmallow for like, what was it, 2 minutes or something like that. And if they could not eat the marshmallow, then they would get a second marshmallow. And there were some who ate the marshmallow and some who waited and got a second one.
It's great.
And how like they did the studies about how like the scientists followed these kids through the years, and the ones who were able to wait for that second marshmallow actually went on to have a lot more success in life, which I'm like, I kind of want to do a marshmallow test on our kids, but I also don't want to, because I'm like, I don't want to know. Like, let's just...
We're kind of depending on you to support us
don't
later.
Don't screw this up. Don't even... No, I mean, obviously that doesn't tell everything about a person, but it is like the principle of it makes sense that if you're able to endure patiently, obviously that's going to be better for you in the long run. But my favorite quote from that talk that Hermana Oaks had handwritten out that I had taped to my wall for months on my mission and would stare at on the days that were particularly hard was this line that said, "Patience means to abide in faith, knowing that sometimes it is in the waiting rather than in the receiving that we grow the most." Just love that thought of like, there's something to be said for that waiting period and the growth that's happening during that time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, like, if I'd had things my way and got everything I wanted when I wanted it, then my life would not be nearly as meaningful. I would not have all the things that are most dear to me in my life. I probably wouldn't even have. Yeah.
Well, and I have to just briefly tell, just so since my mission, starting like almost at the end of my mission, for a long time, and even now to an extent, I was deeply concerned on my mission about what I was going to do for a career. It really, really weighed on me. And I talked to my mission president a lot about it, kind of ignored some of his counsel.
Yeah. What's going to make me the most money?
You're kind of right, actually. Because when I asked him several times, I'm like, what should I look at? What should I go into? And he originally was a teacher, actually, and then he went on to own his own construction company. And anyway, so the first thing out of his mouth, I'll never forget it, was like, education. And I was like, okay, well,
do you have
what about the money?
More lucrative in mind, sir?
And then he's like, well, you'd be great in business too. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so, and so that guy did kind of pursue that. I'll tell you my whole story some other time, but suffice it to say, I prayed, or I would say I cried unto the Lord for a long time, like multiple times a day, every day, for, almost a decade. It was like, what am I doing with my life? What should I be doing? What am I good at? Help me know, how can I provide for my family? How can I enjoy going to work? And it was like, it was something that like I really did, like President Joseph Smith, said to, there might be times in your life when you should totally just weary the Lord with your petition. Weary the Lord with it. Like, just keep asking, keep talking to him about it, keep wrestling like Enos. And, the light, like Elder Bednar's patterns of light examples that he gives about Revelation, the light eventually started to come and the fog eventually lifted. I think it's still lifting. I still think that there's maybe things yet to be done, in my career, or, different things that maybe I'm meant to do. I don't know. But it did eventually come. And what was cool, though, the healing, going back to the leper, or finding a job that I enjoy going to every day, and is super fulfilling, and has been a huge blessing to me and our family in a lot of ways, is awesome. But like you mentioned now earlier, just like, it's the healing, but it's also like, man, the relationship that was forged over almost a decade of just like pleading and wondering and wrestling and trying and sampling different jobs and failing, not really failing, but like, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of ups and downs like that for me was really, an amazing opportunity. I didn't really realize it in the moment, but that was formative. I don't think I could be teaching now, having not established that relationship along the way with Jesus, and all of the little blessings and all like the, workings behind the scenes that I can see now that I couldn't see then, that have led me to where we are even at, even us being married. I didn't see in the moment, because you're, staring at it face to face, but with a greater perspective, a little bit removed from it now, you can see it. And I'm grateful for that process. And I don't think it's done. I really don't. But it's been an amazing learning experience so far. And I am grateful that it's happened the way that it has. And when I say, well, how do I say this? I don't want this to sound ungrateful at all, but I also think, like Dallas, his experience with the pageant, I do think, and I hope that especially even any younger kids listening, Institute kids listening, even adults, even like older adults, doesn't matter. I hope that you're still dreaming big, and I hope that you're still going, swinging huge. I quote it all the time, but Ninth Article of Faith, I do believe there is many great important things that will be revealed to your life and your kingdom. And I got a quick Joseph Smith story, and then I want to hear what you want to say. But it's like the story with Joseph Smith when they didn't have anything to eat. Right? They didn't have anything to eat. And where is it? Well, let's see. It says there were many times the cupboard was bare. One day they had nothing to eat but a little cornmeal. They made out of it a Johnny cake, and it was as it was called. And the prophet offered the blessing as follows: Lord, we thank thee for this Johnny cake, and we ask thee to send us something better. Amen. Before the meal was over, a knock came at the door, and there stood a man with a ham and some flour. The prophet jumped to his feet and said to Emma, I knew the Lord would answer my prayer. And he shared and shared until he was utterly impoverished. And I think it's okay to be grateful for our Johnny cake, but also like, let's see what else we can do.
And that's, again, tying it all back together with gratitude. I don't think that gratitude is necessarily just like contentment with what we have. I think a truly grateful life is one that wants to grow and build. Mm-hmm. And again, like with a pure purpose in mind, not for the sake of like just getting gain and being above other people, but because you want to bring glory to the Lord and to just fulfill the measure of your creation, Just kind of like what Dallas is doing. He was born to be a filmmaker. He is using those talents to bless and glorify God and help a bunch of other people in the process. And that makes me question, okay, what does God want me to do? What talents do I have that I need to be praying for his help to develop so that I can be a better instrument in his hands? Because I want to show gratitude for what he has given me instead of making excuses about why I can't do certain things. I want it to be like, God, you've given me this life. Now, how do I make the most out of it?
Well, it's cool too, though. Remember with Dallas, like this started with something he wanted to do. It was like, I want to do this. And then there's been other experiences that have been like, that he's also probably wanted to do, but it's also like those things have made him more capable of knowing like, what do you want me to do? And like the things that he's wanted to do, have kind of become what I feel like God would have him do. It's anyway.
So I guess the message there being check your heart, check your desires.
Yeah. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then let him like work with it. Right.
And I would say that maybe if your ultimate heart's desire is like, my mind automatically goes to Tangled when they're singing the I Have a Dream song and Flynn Rider's like, I want to be surrounded by enormous piles of money. Like,
yeah.
Like, and the other guys are like, your dream stinks. like, maybe don't dream like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about aiming big. Think of seriously what the Lord wants you to do with your life.
Yeah.
How can you tune your heart into that?
Yeah.
How can you figure out what he wants you to do? How he wants you to bless others with your good and righteous desires?
Yeah.
That's an exciting thought when you dig deeply into that, because I think that all of us have some innate divinity within us that like we want to share with others on some level. Mm-hmm, like some of us will, be book writers, or we will create beautiful pieces of music, or we'll, yeah, be podcasters, whatever. But we're working on that. But like, there's so many different things you can do to just fulfill that in your life, you know?
Well, yeah. And even if it does start with like, you know, this desire of like, I just think this would be something that's cool to do, to utilize my talents or whatever. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at.
Watch you grow in that process.
Exactly. The process, the heart changes. Maybe it's not changed right now, but over time, I think if it's in the right place and your intentions are good, the heart does change. I think of two examples, like John the Baptist. As his influence grew and grew and grew, he was very well known, very famous. And he even said in his own words, look, as big as I'm getting, he must increase and I must decrease. Not that his like following was going away or he's like going to go hide away from all the people. It was like, this has to be much more about him and less about me. Mm-hmm. The second example that comes to my mind is recently I had the amazing opportunity to meet probably, and I don't know if I want to drop his name, but like I had to meet he's probably one of the best artists on the planet today. Like just plain and simple. He just isn't amazing. He's done stuff worldwide. He's also a member of the church, and he's also a car lover, which is really cool. He's an older gentleman, been around a long time. I got to meet with him in his house. It was a really cool thing. I'll talk more about it some other time. But we were talking, after we talked for a couple hours, we got on the subject of cars he's owned, and he's owned a lot of like literally like hundreds of like ultra rare, very cool cars. Today, he only owns a few. And over the course of his, career in life, having all these accolades and all this success, it's cool to hear him talk like, it used to be awesome to like drive through whatever, with my Ferrari and get thumbs up and blah, blah, blah. And everybody thinks you're so cool. And he's like, you know what? He's like, I just don't even really care about that anymore. He's like, I just want to create beauty and create things for people that bless their lives. And,
there you go.
And a lot of it is, it not necessarily religious, but the way he talks about it and interacts with people and the example and the light he shares and his humility, people love this guy, and it's not because of his cool cars. It's because like whether they realize it or not, he's a gentle, kind example of Christ. And maybe that wasn't him in the beginning and he loved the fame and loved, right. But the process, the changing of the heart, like if you're in the right place, and even if you're not, God has an interesting way of taking and attuning your talents and gifts to something that to work toward his glory. And once you taste that, going back to the fruit, it starts to be like, that's what's good. I just want that. I'm just going to grow that tree. Forget about this tree, right? That one's fine. This one's better.
Well, I have a quote from President Nelson that I think would be perfect way to end, if you're ready. And I'd forgotten all about this, but diving deep back into the archives of Instagram, I found this. On New Year's Day of this year, President Russell M. Nelson posted about this whole idea of making goals for the new year and resolutions and the things we want to accomplish. And I feel like it ties in perfectly with what we've talked about on this episode. He says, "For me, deep sea fishing has been infrequent but instructive. Success requires patience, persistence, and prayer. As we begin this new year and make resolutions to improve things in our lives, these 3 requisites for successful fishing can help us. First, be patient. As with fishing, real change requires time, and often a lot of time. It is tempting to expect immediate results and then become disappointed when things don't work out exactly as planned. This may be why the Apostle Paul counseled us to run with patience the race that is set before us. Second, be persistent. Keep at it, even when things get difficult. Push through the tough times and realize that even small victories mean you are having success. The Savior waxed strong in spirit as he grew older. We too can wax strong in spirit and in our talents and habits if we persevere. Third, be prayerful. Call upon God for the strength you need as you labor diligently to become a better version of yourself, a better disciple of Jesus Christ, a brighter light in the world. For they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Happy New Year, my dear friends. May the Lord bless us all as we endeavor to become more like him. So for me, I think if you remember nothing else, just remember those 3 P's from this episode: patience, persistence, and prayer. So we'll leave that with you this week to ponder on and think about as you're enjoying your Thanksgiving meals or whatever you're doing this week, whenever you listen to this. Just stick with it. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're praying for, whatever you're pleading for, keep doing it. Don't give up. Let him change you and trust him. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here again. We love you so much.
Guys, it's been great. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.